Hello again. I want to talk about a concept that first and foremost I want to begin by crediting where credit is due, as much as it pains me to admit this. Gemini AI on my phone actually seemingly coined the phrase that I am now going to appropriate and call this minimalist crystal healing. So, I have been a minimalist at heart for a good long while. When I play music, minimalism is what I strive for. I tend to buy a pair of pants and wear them until they absolutely can't be worn anymore. There's just something about it that appeals to my soul. However, I've also gone to the opposite extremes, and I've wasted a lot of energy, time, and mostly money as well on doing things. Well, whenever you chase anything to excess, it's very, very easy in this culture. I did comic books for a while. When I started playing music again during the pandemic, I went nuts and started buying every instrument I could get my hands on, which, first of all, that's a lot. And secondly, they were generally cheaper, lower quality instruments so that I could have more instruments, and that doesn't help anything either. You're better off with one really good instrument for a bunch of reasons. But anyway, I'm almost 40. I turned 37 last week, and I'm tired of, well, there's a lot of energy drains in my life, and I threw the runes. You know, anybody who has seen my other videos knows I mess with the runes. I've got my sacred rune pouch that I carry with me constantly now. And so I threw the runes, and I asked Odin what the primary focus of my next year of life should be, and energy work was the answer. So you start with the very, very, very basics, and then from a word to a word, from a deed to another deed, right? So, clear crystal quartz, right? I had thought, because I'm kind of a hipster, or I want to be a hipster, so I had thought, like, wow, that's just too basic. Look at all these other shiny purple and green stones. So I would get the shiny and purple or green stones, and you know, kind of sort of look up what they were supposed to be doing, and then, you know, maybe I'd rock them for a week, and then I'd want another one, and this and that, or just, that's kind of how I am with a lot of things, you know. I buy more books before I've finished reading them. We'll get to that. So I decided to just slow down. Start with what they call the master healer. Do I know very much about crystal healing? No, but I know that I'm drawn to them, which is interesting because geology was like one of my least favorites. I mean, it was like maybe one of the most boring classes I can remember taking when I got my associate's degree. But now I'm into it. But I do remember having an appreciation, if nothing else, for the mere age of the rocks around us. But at that time, I was not very spiritual. So now I understand the deeper component of the material world, right? So where I'm going with this is I've been called to stones for whatever reason as part of my journey. Even in the spiritual world, it's very easy to become a consumer, you know, like, oh, I got to get a tarot deck. And then, you know, maybe I'll have a couple tarot decks because there's so many different styles. And I got rid of my tarot deck because I went back to the runes. But even now, I still feel the pull to, like, maybe I should go get a tarot deck. Get back into that. And a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. And in my mind, that means I'll make half the progress in either one. So I've resisted that pull. Same thing with books. I keep buying new books. Then the next thing you know, I've got 100 books on my bookshelf. I've read 3 chapters of each and all of none of them. So, energy, focus, clarity, clear crystal quartz. But then when you're on the right path in life, you can get confirmation from the higher source. And I saw this book, The Crystal Mindfulness by Judy Hall, the world-renowned master of all books on crystal healing and things like that, right? This book was 99 cents at a Goodwill. And then I got to the counter and it was half off. So 45-cent book. That's basically a free book. But here's where I'm going with this. There are tons and tons of different kinds of stones. Look at that. This one, this one, this one. There's a bunch of stuff in here. But this is where my critical thinking and scientific analysis comes in. On a scientific material level, right? I don't see the great need to justify faith healing with how does it work scientifically. There's a lot of stuff like that out there where they're trying to tell you about the scientific reasons why crystal healing does work. I don't need that. I'm content to accept the spiritual explanation, okay? But on a scientific level, this thing is mostly silica, not even sure how it's pronounced, totally ignorant right here, okay? But it's silica dioxide, arranged in a crystalline form. It's about as much as I can understand about it. And that this rock right here is comfortably older than the entirety of human civilization, or possibly even the existence of our species. That I can also wrap my head around. So anyway, whoops. You know what? Absorb the energy of the grass. It must have happened for a reason. So one of the first stones that's mentioned in this book is jasper. So I asked my phone about jasper, and it told me that it is also silica-based, largely, with some important differences, but it's still essentially a quartz crystal. And that's what got my wheels turning. And then I asked my phone, are all crystals silica-based? The answer is no. But this got my wheels turning. For the sake of not falling prey to consumerism, and for the further sake of developing as deep of a level of mastery as I possibly can. Let me hold that in the light because it's so pretty. As deep a mastery as I possibly can with this single stone. What if, for all of the crystals that are in this book that are silica based, I simply experimented with reprogramming and using this single stone, the path of one stone. By the way, I'm using stone colloquially. I'm not sure if geologically or even in the crystal healing world people might take umbrage with that. I don't know. But with this single entity, this spiritual chunk right here, what if I just developed a practice of calling upon the highest power to empower this stone, asking the power within this stone to reprogram for all of these various intentions and things like that, and just did that. Now, then, when I get to, as I go through this book, which coincides with the meditation book I'm reading, remember, energy work, basics, breathing, crystal quartz, meditation, now mindfulness, right? So it's all somewhat in the same ballpark and very, very basic building block type stuff for your personal energy. So what if I just, went through this book, all the exercises and crystals. Now, when I get to something that's like, I don't even know, I'm an ignorant person, so like calcium based or whatever, then maybe I can go get that one stone. But I can still use that one stone as a substitute for all the other calcium based stones, perhaps. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. So Gemini coined the term the minimalist crystal healing. Now, I wanted to say something else. So let me wrap up this by saying that this is so that I don't do what I have heard people do, which is go out and buy a whole bunch of the different stones, because I need a stone for this and I need a stone for that, and then it gets confusing. And I believe the term for it is called like decision fatigue or something like that, where they've proven that like a fast food restaurant's menu, if it's just like 2 kinds of burgers, 2 flavors of milkshake, and a couple different styles of fries, it's actually easier and more comfortable for people to make a decision than when they have 30 different things staring them in the face and what do I really want today? At least that's what I've heard and read somewhere. I think it's called decision fatigue. So it's kind of like that. Maybe I'm just going to avoid that and not rush out and spend a ton of money on a whole bunch of stones that I maybe don't really need. So then I wanted to follow up with the crystal cleansing video that I made and say that I wasn't even really sure if I believed in all this stuff deeply. I was walking the walk and I was talking the talk, but did I feel the feel? I've had pretty much permanent neck problems this whole year. And one day while I was driving on a 10 to 15 minute drive, I just put this right here in the back of my collar and held it against the back of my neck as I drove. My neck feels about 80 to 90% better. My wife has some lower back problems. I asked her to lay down. I tucked this into the waistband of her pants above her lower back, had her just lay there for 10, 15 minutes. she reported diminished pain and greater mobility. I also know that when I hold this stone and I try to radiate loving energy or receive, well, first I tried to receive loving energy and I felt it. So then I decided, what if I use this single stone to radiate loving energy out into the entire world by drawing up, this is just the basic stuff I understand from being involved in this, studying this stuff, right? So drawing up the power of Mother Earth herself, essentially a giant crystal quartz. Lots of other stuff in there too, I know, but it is the most abundant mineral on the planet, they say. So drawing up her energy through this stone, out through my hand and will and intention into the world, I started beaming everyone loving goodwill, and it was like I was high on some class of powerful marijuana, because I started like looking at the sunshine different, the plants, I felt a greater connection. Everybody that walked down the sidewalk, instead of feeling threatened and weird by people who were glaring at me, I just would be like, you have a wonderful day, and you look beautiful, and you are exactly on your path where you need to be, and just nothing but positive thoughts everywhere. And I've managed to tap into that a couple times since, and these little things have convinced me that there's something here. So the path I seem to be on is rune work and crystal work. And then let me wrap up with this. In the meditation book I'm reading, there's something called, they mention something called spiritual bypassing. Do not let spiritual means like crystal healing and rune work and prayer be a substitute for using actual psychological, clinically validated therapy to address psychological wounds that also have spiritual components, right? It can't be a purely spiritual thing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Runes, crystals, and therapy. I hope this year ahead brings lots of wonderful things, and I have no idea what I'm going to post about next. Remember when this used to be a music channel? Love.